Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Brown Knives LHC-x, a beautiful and very, very well made American custom slash semi-custom, it depends on how you define that, knife. These are small batch. This is not made by a company that mass produces them, but they are extremely high quality. You can follow Brown Knives on Instagram, check out his website. It's one of those knives where, you know, when he does stuff, it's gonna go quick. The only other Brown knife that I've ever handled on this channel was the Cortex, and it was of equal quality, very impressive, very good tolerances. This is, I'm gonna say before I review the knife, this is some of the nicest stuff that I have ever seen in this general, you know, tier, right? Because we are not looking at, obviously, a Gerber or a SOG. We are looking at a super, super high quality pocket knife. So getting your hands on those is one of those things where you're gonna have to, you know, follow and pay attention. But anyways, thanks to Joe, I've got one here that I can share with you guys and talk about so that people can decide whether or not they want to go down that road. Thanks so much to my generous patrons who are supporting me right now. There's a link for Patreon right down below. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. So this particular one, I'm going to show you guys because I found this interesting and pretty cool about his website. You can see here that this is number 157. There's all the information that you can pause it if you want it. You can actually go to his website, and it has the past, or like the archive knives gallery, and you can go through and look at every single one of these. And I think it's the same with all of his models. All the pictures are all there, right? Now, you know, don't go there and complain to him that he doesn't have anything in stock, because again, this is, as far as I understand, it's just one guy, maybe a few guys at most. And it is a small operation. There's a lot of demand, and he doesn't have the ability to pump out, you know, like Gerber does with the Paraframe. Doesn't have the ability to make that many. So, but it is cool that you can go and look and see all of the different ones, all the different personalities that come out in these. They do vary dramatically in price. We'll talk about that. But the ones on the less expensive end, like this guy, are pretty impressive. Let's go ahead and get a measurement here. Overall length of the LHC-x coming in at about 7.6, maybe 7.75, maybe if you want to stretch it, something like that. Whoops, sorry. Blade length is coming in at about 3 1/4, maybe 3.3, and your cutting edge is coming in at about just a hair over 3 inches, 3 1/16. How about some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2? You can see here it's closer to the size of the Rat 2, but it's got similar cutting edge because of the way that the Rat 1's blade is, right? So there you go. Profile is definitely one of a more compact, it's a thinner profile. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? Definitely closer in overall length to the Spyderco Para 3, but much more cutting edge. Ratios, honestly, blade handle ratios, very good on this knife. The Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Benchmade Bug Out. Also, once again, definitely closer to the Bug Out. A little bit longer, and just a hair more, I think, on the cutting, maybe? Let's put the cutting edge. This is about the same. Same cutting edge, it looks like, when compared to the Bug Out. How about thickness? Well, first let me demonstrate the action on this. Get it past that detent ball, and then, oh yeah, that's some of the that is incredibly high quality action. You know, I don't judge on whether or not it's fall shut alone. I like to judge off of how controlled it is. You can see there, it's extremely controlled. There's enough pressure that it's not slamming down into the frame, but it is falling shut, and that was the exact same experience I had with the Cortex. I really like that. I find that infinitely more impressive than just some blade that's just like falling sloppily into the... Is sloppily a word? Sloppily. I find that infinitely more impressive than, you know, just sloppy fall shut action. Anyways, let's go ahead and put it up against the Spyderco Para 3 thickness. Yeah, it's about the same combination of the, in this case, titanium liners and then the micarta overlay. It's important to point out that some of them are bolster locks. In this case, it is, I'd still call it a frame lock under an overlay because there's quite a bit of material there, but you can call it whatever you want. Some of them are a little bit different. I imagine all of them will be about like this. Come on, the knives are right here. There we go. Just a hair thicker than the Para 3. Where it's going to shine is just the overall carry profile. Yes, we are going to talk about that beautiful ano. Don't you worry, we are going to talk about that. But yeah, this is just an easier object to carry in general. And the Para 3 is one of my favorite carry knives. And this thing is just not going to take up nearly as much room. It's a skinny profile. It's not a thick knife. It has a low profile flipper tab, and it's not super long. It's about the same, it's actually, yeah, it's about the same overall length as the Spyderco Para 3 when it's closed. So there you go. Materials, we are looking at titanium, beautifully anodized titanium. We're looking at micarta in this case, but it's important to remember that, or to point out that there are various, if you go to the website and look at the Past Knives archive, there are tons. It's not like you can only get it in Blurple and micarta. No, there's tons and tons, and he does texturing, and he does different ano, and he does different materials, right? And carbon fiber and all this. It's a whole bunch of stuff, right? But in this case, we're looking at micarta, we're looking at titanium, and we're looking at CPM 154. And before you ask, oh my gosh, shouldn't that be 20 CV? Shouldn't it be M3? No, I don't care. I love CPM 154. I will take CPM 154 on an $80 knife, and I will take it on a $1,000 knife, which is the same. Let me remind you, there are knives that cost $80 that are utilizing CPM 20 CV and M390, and there are $1,000 knives that are utilizing the same steel. So that argument, out the window. Obviously, don't want this in HCR 13 MOV, which is just a regular, that's AUS 8, right? This is still, CPM 154 is still a performance powder steel. And it's something that I am not bothered by at all on a knife of this caliber. Weight, yeah, 3.07 ounces. The ratios on this guy, wonderful, 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 wonderful. Hardware check. So this has its own little thing here, but you can just use a regular, I think that's to just hold it steady, but you can use a regular, I'm not actually going to touch it, but I believe what we're looking at here is T8, T8, a T8 screw right here, and then there is a hidden screw for the pocket clip right in here. So not a lot of hardware, not an overly complicated build on a knife, which is great. I don't like complication. Periodically I think it's important to take your knives apart and get any, if there's a buildup of debris, clear it out. So yeah, this is going to be an easy knife to take apart. Blade stock thickness, I will do that because I've got tape on the calipers, and that's why it's on there. It's just to protect the blades from the stupid metal on the calipers. So we have, in this case, 148, probably 145 thousandths, possibly 150, but I doubt it. In fact, I kind of want to do that again because it seems like that's incorrect. Let's try again. It is 146. Okay, we're going to call that 145 thousandths. It's thicker than I would have guessed, but we'll talk about that grind here. So this is a really good looking knife, and something that I've noticed with Brown knives is he makes really good looking knives. They're very stylish. They're kind of minimalist, but then again, it's not like the obnoxious, this is just like meant to be trendy. Nah, it looks cool. It's got its own character. It's got its own thing going on, right? It's not directly pulling from anything else. Like, it has some people, it's usually new people who say this, that looks like something about some other knife that has kind of a generic knife profile. There is enough of a generic enough knife profile here that it's going to kind of look like a lot of other things that we've seen, but it also has very distinct, unique characteristics about it that make it, you know, its own thing. I love the shadow boxing with the titanium here. Everything, all the edges have been nicely knocked down. What's normally a problem with that is you have weird edges that make it uncomfortable. Not in this case. It's all been beautifully knocked down. And the ano on this knife has this color change. I'm sure you've seen it. You can see right before your eyes, the pocket clip is literally changing from purple to blue. And it's like that all the way around. Every part of this knife changes color. This is so beautiful. It's so cool. The hues of purple and blue on this thing, and all of, like his other knives with the anodizing, it's all incredibly vibrant. It's just wonderful. I love this. Ergonomically, there's not, you know, a whole lot of lock-in. There's just kind of a carved out area right here which allows you access to the lock bar, which is wonderful, by the way. Look at this. Look at this. Huh. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. The point at which the detent ball actually gets up on the face of the blade is not until right here, which is funny, but still no double clutch, right? And you can get it down to about right there, turn it and it closes. It just takes a bit for it to occur, but there's a detent ramp anyway, so no big deal. But yeah, ergonomic lock-in. You can still get a full 4-finger grip on this guy. It's nice and open, which is what I like. I don't like being, you know, squished into one area of the knife. I'm not going to say it feels like I'm going to drop it, but it also doesn't feel like, yeah, I'm definitely not going to drop it, but it's good. It's comfortable, right? And because of this pocket clip design, which is excellent, there are no hot spots, which I think is the most important thing, right? Like I said, access to the lock bar, great. Detent is great. The flipper tab is okay. It's definitely low profile. When I try to light switch it, I find myself, because of the angle of it, I find myself slipping off of it a lot. Not so much when I go to push button it, but it also doesn't feel, it just feels like I'm kind of missing it every single time. I think it's almost, I don't know that it's the low profileness. I think we just need a shape that's going to catch your finger a bit more. So about 1 in every 10 flips I do this, and I just miss it. And that could just be me, but it's a little bit too, there's nothing wrong with the detent or the action. The flipper tab is the ratio between the smoothness of it and its low profileness, right? And the shape, it's not exactly right for my fingers to get it every single time. But it's pretty good, and it should definitely not be a deal breaker if you're considering this knife. The blade, oh boy, this is just a real nice blade. Can we take a moment to appreciate the fact that we have nothing on the blade, right? We got a little bit here on the pocket clip, but that's a nice way to do that. And then there's a lot of information on the inside, right in here. I don't know if we can actually see it. Get my flashlight. There's information on the inside, right? Which is nice. Keep that crap off the blade and put it on the inside. That makes way more sense. So this is beautiful the way that he's done this. The flat, it ends right here, and then we essentially, it's almost a flat ground blade. You have this nice wedge that extends all the way out to the tip. That's just a, gosh, that's a nice, it's just really nice looking. The tumbled finish is just perfect. Slight reflectivity. We have a little bit of jimping, and there is a little bit of a rise right here, so you can definitely lock in. The blade does taper down to a very, very thin and very slicey cutting edge, despite being 145 thousandths up here. These corners are all completely knocked down. There's nothing sharp here, and I love how it just comes to this sort of crest. That's just beautiful. Nice puncture tip. This is a really good day-to-day blade profile with plenty of cutting edge, plenty. Say beautiful, just an excellent way to do this. Also love the jimping, right? I don't like jimping that's mega aggressive. Like, I don't need, you know, a lot of jimping, it's like, have you ever seen like a bastion on a castle? That's what it reminds me of. It's like, why? This is all we need, right? The jimping like this is just about perfect. It's just, I'll use the XM18 3.5 inch, for example, or the 24. It's just ridiculous. It doesn't need to be like that. And that's coming from a huge Hinderer fan, right? Yeah, I really like this. It's excellent. The backspacer on this guy, this is just really cool. Look at that. That's just neat. It just looks nice. I love that. A little bit of texturing, showing off that sort of iridescent. Look at this color changing. Look, here we go. Backspacer's all purple. Let's turn it a bit. Oh, we're turning blue. Keep going. We're a little more blue. Maybe back to purple again on this side. There we go. Now we're all purple again. It's not a trick. It's how light is being bent, I guess. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm a scientist. But I love it. I just love it. You don't have, it's fine if you're like, I don't like blue and purple. I don't like it. Okay, that's fine. There's like a bajillion different, I'm just saying it's neat that we have this anno here. Pocket clip. Freaking excellent. Excellent. There's no lanyard anything. Sorry, lanyard people. You just can't put a lanyard on this. Darn it. The pocket clip is not what I would call deep or shallow, which is not what defines a good clip. The clip is nice and flat. It goes with the design. It carries it deep enough, and it is a full sculpted 3D clip with a continuous rise off of this point right here, which means pushing it into your pocket with one hand, generally speaking. A little bit of friction on this micarta. It depends on the material you're, working with, but that's going to go in and out of your pants pretty easily. It's just a real class, just a nice pocket clip, sculpted and just goes perfectly with the design. I love it. We've got a little tiny spot here for access to the lock bar insert without taking the overlay off, which is interesting. Not necessary, but interesting. I love his bolster and, sub frame lock. Frame lock with overlay designs. I love those because you don't have to worry. This flipper tab would be way more problematic if this was an exposed frame lock because we have a narrow frame, but it's not. So you can easily, after you kind of get down how much pressure and the angle and everything like that, you don't have to worry about where this finger is, right? Because it's putting pressure on the scale, not on the lock bar, which would make it harder to open. I can't tell you how many times people have emailed me saying, what is wrong with this? It's so stiff, I can't open it. I'm like, are you putting pressure on the lock bar? And they're like, oh, yeah, it was. So yeah, I get it. Like I remember dealing with that too, but yeah. We have a stop pin that is internal and it follows the blade. Can you see that bar right there? So it acts a lot like, this is I think the best setup is when it is attached to the blade, the lugs, and they ride on channels on the inside of the frame. This way you don't have to worry about anything being in the cutting path. There's no thumb stud, right? I don't know. I don't know how much that matters to me on this design. But you have 3 points of contact versus 2. You have, the lug on each side of the frame, and then of course the lock bar. And traditionally, when the stop pin is just like right here, you have 1 point of contact, 2 points. It's fine, but I think this is better. A little more stable and allows you, or knife makers, production, if they're done right, very good action and extremely solid lockup, right? Not always, but in this case, with knives like these, definitely. We have no pivot lash. Check this before the video. No pivot lash whatsoever. Extremely smooth and consistent, right? We have perfect, and I mean perfect. It's always daring when they have these backspacers that come to a divider line, because if it's off by a hair, you're gonna know. But it isn't. It's not. It's perfect, right? It's just beautiful. No detent lash or anything like that. Sometimes that happens too, right? If you push, yeah, that can happen. If you push button it and you keep your finger right there, it won't walk all the way out. So it's you got to kind of go in between and make sure your finger goes backwards after you flip it. Outside of the flipper tab, which is not a deal breaker, it's just the only part of this knife that I'm kind of like, yeah, I wish that was a little bit different, right? And that's pretty nitpicky. Sorry, I'm getting fingerprints off of this. That's pretty nitpicky. I'll tell you what impresses me the most about this knife is the overwhelming quality. Again, for people going, this sounds like somebody paid him to no, it's not my knife. It wasn't sent by the person who made it. It was sent by a viewer, and it goes back to the viewer after I'm done. On top of that, I have no affiliate program set up whatsoever with the maker of this knife. Look down in the description. There are no links for this. So no, there is nothing that's pushing me to say nice things about this. That's just people who don't do enough research or don't really know what they're talking about who assume that. This is one of the nicest knives that I have handled at this price point. What is that price point? Well, people who are familiar with the knife world, this is going to come as no shock to you. The base price for these, as far as I can tell, is about $750, right? But again, we're talking about small batch, US made, where I believe it's Washington is where these are made. Small batch, very high quality, incredible attention to detail, and I'm talking about perfection. Those of you who are perfectionists who literally get a magnifying glass out when you buy a knife, I get it, because I do that. In fact, my magnifying glass is right here. I'm not kidding. I actually do that. Yeah, this is one of those. So right up there with Herman and some of the lesser expensive Shirogorov knives. Put this in the same category as Holt and Koenig. I think these are definitely, I mean, again, I'm talking about knives that you actually commit, right? People wanting to throw this up against a Wii or a Spyderco or a ZT or a, those are cool. They're great. That's not, we're not talking about the same caliber. You handle this and you handle it side by side with something that you can get for anywhere from $100 to $300. It's pretty apparent there's a huge difference in the amount of work. Do you have to spend that much money to get that much more utility? No, not at all. A lot of those elements don't translate directly to utility. But again, as I've said a million times, utility is not, in this territory, is not the primary reason people are buying knives like these. They are looking for the extra mile. They're looking for the extra polish. Even when it doesn't have, I know it's hard for some people to comprehend this, even when it doesn't translate directly to utilitarian function. But that doesn't really matter anyway, because it's one of those things where if you like it, you can buy it, and if you don't like it, you don't have to. But if you want my opinion versus other knives that are actually in the same caliber as this, yes, Holt, Koenig, some of the lesser expensive Shirogorovs, Herman, right? Some of the nicest stuff that I've handled in this relative territory. Ooh, these are, I don't often recommend knives that are this expensive, right? Because this is a lot of money for a pocket knife. But my gosh, if you've climbed that ladder, nobody goes, today I bought a Rat 1 and tomorrow I'm gonna buy a Brown LHC-x. No, there's a few other steps in between there. If you have climbed the ladder, right, and you are in this territory and you're looking, look at Brown. My goodness, and this is a great everyday carry profile, right? Very similar to the Bug Out or the 940. Just great and good ratios. It's just masterwork. This is really, really nice. So you can collect it, put it in a case and never use it if you want to, or you could use it every single day and it'll probably last a lifetime or more. The fact that it's CPM 154, I think is a massive bonus, because if you do use it and you got to touch it up or sharpen it, CPM 154 is wonderful. That's why it's one of my favorite steels, probably still my favorite user steel ever. There's a reason that custom knife makers, that so many of them, have used CPM 154 for so long. It's just a good steel. This is a great knife. It's one of the most expensive knives in my most recommended playlist, which, definitely has knives that are all over the place, anywhere from 20 to, well, all the way up to about here, right? Yeah, this is a recommended knife if you're going to spend that much money. Not saying that you have to get a nice knife. You can get a nice knife for $50 nowadays or less. But if you're looking for the extra and you are a perfectionist and you don't want your knife to have any blemishes, flaws, any weirdness whatsoever, if you are that meticulous, Brown knives. This is really nice. That's going to be pretty much it today. Thanks so much to the gentleman who lent this knife to me. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.